Welcome to the Marketing Intelligence Show powered by Supermetrics, the leading marketing intelligence platform helping agencies and brands turn data into business growth.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Marketing Intelligence Show by Supermetrics. My name's Alex. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Supermetrics, and today I'm joined by the one and only Matthew Simmonds, our Chief Product and Technology Officer. Matt, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here.
Likewise. So today we're going to be tackling a topic that's super exciting for us because we just released our recent 2025 marketing data report. This report outlines some alarming trends, like marketing teams are wrestling with 230% more data than they were back in 2020, yet 56% of them can't analyze it effectively or don't have enough time to do it. So clearly there's way more data to go around than we can handle. So Matt, this report really highlights this data flood like mentioned, and is the problem simply that marketers are collecting too much data, or is there a more fundamental issue in how we're approaching data connectivity in our tech stacks?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, it's an incredible time to be a marketer right now, but I think it's also very, very daunting. I've been around a very long time, and in that time, I've seen marketing transform to become truly data-driven, right? Everything now in marketing is driven by data. We've got more channels, we've got more data points than ever before. We've got so much data. Not only is there a problem with quantity, there's also a problem with quality, right? Mm-hmm. Good data is also required to make the best possible decisions. There's a few other things that are happening which I think are making this picture even harder for marketers. If you think about traditionally, data sources for marketing have been the ad platforms, right?
Yeah, of course.
Meta, Google, LinkedIn. But these are not only data sources, they're also becoming destinations.
Right.
So more and more, marketers are needing to actually push data back out to the ad platform so they can optimize their campaigns. So really, data connectivity needs to be now bi-directional. Not just in one direction, but in two. And this is a real headache because the ecosystem for all these different data platforms is now incredibly complex. Adding to this, if you think about really what most modern marketing is trying to do, it's about driving optimized and personalized experiences for their customers to drive growth. And this kind of holy grail of personalization has been around for a very long time, but it's still very hard to do.
Right.
And I think you've seen in recent times that there are new platforms popping up left, right, and center that claim to solve this problem. In particular, there have been companies recently who are traditionally more like reverse ETL companies, which is like the data out pipeline, that have kind of rebadged themselves as composable CDPs. And of course, CDPs have been around again for a very long time. But this new term, composable CDP, is another thing that marketers are having to grapple with. What does it actually mean? So there's a real trend to rebrand, remarket ourselves as platforms, even if these might not be right for every type of marketer.
Right, exactly. And when you mentioned CDP, obviously the customer data platform. So you're saying that there's a disconnect with what we're seeing with the composable CDP pitch and the reality of what they're actually delivering on? Yeah,
I think so. I think for those who may not be familiar with this term, composable CDP are CDPs that sit on top of a data warehouse. They kind of move away from having to store data themselves by letting you run their capabilities on top of your own data warehouse. So you're a big brand, you've invested in BigQuery or Snowflake. Right. That's where your kind of marketing data source of truth is. And these technologies sit on top of that, which is great for some companies, right? Many bigger enterprises or agencies that have the tech teams, the resources to invest in data warehouses can use these tools effectively. But it doesn't work for everybody. If you think about our customer list, right? We have thousands and thousands of customers in the mid-market who don't have a data warehouse and probably never will. So composable CDPs, whilst promise a lot, they're not necessarily the silver bullet for everybody. In addition, I think in recent times, as we're going to talk through this show, that the hype around AI is now taking over everything. Mm-hmm. And companies who've been doing the same use case, which is really personalization for a very long time, are kind of rebadging that as AI-powered or agent-powered to make the most of the kind of current hype. But that, again, is not necessarily the truth. There's a lot of spin here. There's a lot of product marketing, which you know something about. So I think really when we go forward, when you look at choosing platforms, and again, we think about personalization, the path for marketers is going to be to pick platforms that are really composable, that really not just say they're composable, but let you choose how you operate them, whether that's storing your data in a data warehouse or storing it yourself somewhere or using another platform to store that data. It has to be flexible to your particular needs and use cases.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, we could spend a whole different podcast talking about the rise of AI and the hype of AI. And, I think in product marketing there for years now, there's been like the concept that every company wants to be an AI company, but everybody can't be an AI company. There are only few true AI companies. But yeah, more on that in just a bit. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about measurement as well. So in this research report, in the 2025 marketing data report, 41% of CMOs actually indicated they struggle in proving ROI through their marketing measurement. And marketing mix modeling, so MMM for a lot of people, is obviously a really hot topic. But is MMM the ultimate solution to measurement in your mind?
It's a good question. I think look, measurement, again, has been a challenge for marketers from day one, right? It's still a big challenge, especially given the kind of data flood that we've just talked about. There's more data than ever before. MMM itself as a technique has been around for a very long time, right? It's nothing new. It's kind of had waves of popularity, then sunk down again, then risen up again. I think the latest wave of popularity is due to what's happened with third-party cookies. Though the retirement of third-party cookies has made it even more important to use statistical techniques to predict performance, which is what MMM is. But I don't think MMM has really ever got the adoption that it really warranted, because it is a very complex thing. Setting up MMM models is complex. You need high-quality data. Interpreting the results is also complex, and then making decisions based on those results is another layer. So MMM is the right tool for some companies, but not for everybody. We work very closely with Google. They're one of our biggest partners, and they released their modern marketing measurement playbook, which I think hits the nail on the head, right? It's about choosing the right solution for your particular needs and use cases. I think when it comes to measurement, MMM is the right tool for some things, but there are other tools also that could work, things like incrementality testing, the various attribution models that are used. I think the most important thing here is going back to this consistent message. Choose the right tool for your needs. Don't be forced down a particular path. And I think with measurement, that's clearly the case. Like, you need to possibly use the best of several methods to get the right picture. I think with MMM, it's generally more of a high-level and strategic tool, whereas if you move to more like incrementality approaches, they tend to be more real-time and tactical. So what's clear, though, is whatever you do with measurement, the foundation is high-quality data. It's high-quality data, and in most cases, some form of ML, AI, or statistical modeling techniques that kind of power these technologies.
AI again, yeah. I think there's actually an interesting topic. I remember talking about this at Super Summit, I think 2 years ago, where we were talking about using different measurement methods to build your perfect measurement stack. And back then we used the analogy that when you're flying a plane, you don't fly the plane with just one unit of measurement, with just one instrument. You need ground speed, you need wind speed, you need tilt, pitch, all of these different instruments that allow you to fly the plane effectively. And marketing measurement really is no different. So rather than just relying on one method, you want to rely on a number of different ones. All right, but again, now you mentioned AI there again, and let's shift to that a little bit, because of course we're talking about the future of marketing data here. Everybody wants to know about AI, so and the buzz that it's generating. So in our report, actually, I think it's 57% of marketing leaders mentioned that they're adopting AI technologies in their organization, but there's a disconnect where only 46% of contributors actually felt that AI was solving their problems. They're kind of getting AI technology, but it's not necessarily bringing anything to their day-to-day. So what's your take on this?
And those are interesting numbers. And actually, I don't think if you'd run that survey 10 years ago, you probably would have got the same answer, honestly, because I've been in this industry a long time, and AI has been in this industry a long time. I remember studying AI 20 years ago. Like, this is not new. And in marketing, it has been around and tried and tested for a long time in different types of scenarios, different types of use cases. It's tended to be a tool for larger, more mature marketing organizations, organizations that have big audiences where they can experiment, but also where they have the budget and the time to invest in these types of technology. From my experience in working with AI for a long time, really that you get the best when you mix AI with a human in the loop approach. There has to be a human element. And if you get that right, you can drive significant growth with these techniques and technologies. Obviously, in the last couple of years, everything's all about large language models, and large language models are great, but in reality, they're just an enabler. They're an enabler for making AI more accessible to marketing teams, to bringing down the cost of adopting these technologies, and to help drive democratization of AI in marketing, which is something that we believe passionate about here at Supermetrics. And I think this is the most exciting part of it. But like I've said, like LLMs really are already commoditized. Think of them as like the pipe work below the surface. They're a pipeline of data. And really, there's not much difference between the different models. They all are slightly better or slightly worse at different use cases. So I think from our perspective, we want our customers to be able to leverage that plumbing, that pipe work. But really the future and the most successful marketing platforms are going to be the ones that hide away the complexity of large language models and just simply, like I said, use it as an enabler for solving problems and for solving problems that marketers face at a lower cost than before.
And I mean, in general, I remember hearing this statement where someone said that what the LLMs are doing for AI is kind of what the internet browser did for the web, making the web much more accessible to the average person. And that's really what it's meant for, to just enable and make things easier. And really, that's what different organizations should be focusing on. How do you make Gen AI accessible so you can get the most out of those use cases? Continuing on the topic of Gen AI, what are some of the problems that you think it might solve in the future? And realistically, obviously, you don't have a crystal ball, but if you did, when do you think those would become a reality?
Yeah, I mean, everything is moving so fast, isn't it, right? It's really hard to keep up with. And I think if I was a CMO trying to understand where to invest and how in this technology, it would be very, very daunting. I think in the last couple of years, when Gen AI and ChatGPT appeared, like the big focus was really using those technologies to generate content at scale, to use AI to generate content. And more recently, if you see what many companies are doing, they're using large language models to help interrogate data. So if you think about in our world, data insights, you can go into Google's Looker Studio now and it's got a chat-based agent to help you understand your marketing data. And I think there is great promise there, but I still don't think those tools are quite delivering on the promise. I think there's a lot of excitement about agents, AI agents and agentic approaches. I think if you think about what an agent is, it's really a technique to help streamline and automate workflows at its heart. It's certainly in marketing, and of course there are many different use cases, but in marketing, I would think of it as a way to automate the workflows, which are often very, very complex for marketers. So I think there's great potential here, and if you think about the workflow that exists in the Supermetrics platform about, firstly, connecting data, then getting insights, and then finally activating data, there's a potential place for agents in all of that. If they deliver on their promise, in reality, there might be a way that an agentic approach can actually create a new paradigm for someone who actually works with a SaaS platform in marketing, actually, or a SaaS platform in any industry. But it's very, very early. If I was to predict one area where they might have the biggest impact, I'd go back to this kind of idea of activation, where I believe that activation and personalization generally involves weaving customer journeys together across channels and across platforms. And there could be a world where you could build an agent that actually automatically builds those journeys for marketers and connects those platforms together and drives those personalized experiences for the end customer. But it's a little way off, I would say. I think the hype cycle is at its very peak right now. We have to kind of cut through that and understand that while these technologies have potentially transformative capabilities, it's still very early. And my advice to marketers would be, it's right to evaluate, to experiment, but don't believe all the hype just yet.
Yeah, 100%. And I've noticed in my day-to-day job that there's a million different areas I could apply Gen AI into my workflows, and sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it just slows me down. I end up doing the work myself anyway. And, you know, given the rise and, you know, the complexity of the marketing ecosystem we're in, and, you know, that we just talked about, do you think CMOs are overwhelmed by the sheer number of tools available to them? Like, what should they do? What's the way they can move forward and pick the right ones?
I think everyone is. Like, even at Supermetrics, when we look at buying tools now, we're bombarded with
Everything's AI.
Everything's AI. And, you know, what actually works, what solves real problems. And again, I think if you look at the history of marketing technology, you know, a lot has changed in the last 15 years. Like when I first started in the industry, it was kind of the rise of the marketing clouds. If you remember, Adobe, Salesforce, Oracle, they kind of built these marketing stacks by acquiring, actually, a bunch of different companies, stitching them together quite badly in some cases, and preaching the kind of stack mentality, do everything in one place. It worked for many companies, but not for all. And I think in recent times, there's kind of been a little bit of a reversal where I think CMOs are starting to look back at best of breed and starting to understand if there is a way to have point providers for particular use cases, but make sure that those point providers are very API first. So they are they can be seamlessly integrated with each other. So I think realistically, in my opinion, that the future belongs to that type of approach where we have marketing platforms that can be composable, but also can be seamlessly integrated with each other via APIs. And again, we are probably not quite there yet, but it's certainly something that we're working on at Supermetrics.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what we do is try to essentially democratize access to those advanced capabilities and that advanced point-to-point combination and integration of different tools. So
yeah, that's a good point, which I forgot to mention. This idea of democratization. So marketing is complex, right? It's like we've said all through this conversation. It's data-driven. It's highly technical, and actually, the more complex use cases that marketers want to do, like I said before, have been historically in the hands of large enterprises with big budgets. Really, you know, we want at Supermetrics, and in general, I think the world of marketing wants to bring those tools and capabilities downwards towards the kind of mass market of marketers who don't necessarily have the enormous budgets. And things like MMM, you know, if there's a way to simplify that so that it is not as complex as before and it can be used in a self-serve way, you know, that's the kind of path forward that I think most marketers would like to see.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I mean, MMM, we talk about that internally here at Supermetrics. We work with partners on that. I think actually we did a podcast with our friends at Cellforte just recently. So do check that out. That, I believe, covered MMM and incrementality testing. So a good read. You already touched on bits of this in terms of Supermetrics and how we're addressing these challenges. But are there any other key takeaways that you'd like to highlight for the audience? Like things that we're really focusing on, things that we're looking to push the baton on in the world of marketing intelligence?
Yeah, I think I've kind of, like I said, I've touched on it. Our product strategy is really about building a composable platform that is tailored to the needs of the individual customer, that is API first so that we can connect in and out, that bi-directional connectivity that I talked about. But we personally don't want to force our customers to use our platform in a certain way. You know, if you've got a data warehouse, great. You can use Supermetrics with the data warehouse. If you haven't, doesn't matter. You can use this in a real-time fashion without having to store data. We also, as you can probably tell, like most companies are investing in AI, but we very much see AI as just a tool to solve problems. We're not going to build it for the sake of it. We're not going to tick a checkbox to say we've got a Gen AI feature. We're only going to do it if it solves real problems for our customers. So yeah, I think that's the kind of broad strategy that we're working towards, and it's a journey, but we're making big strides towards it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I've been at Supermetrics for 3 years now, and we've taken great strides towards that. Much thanks to our lovely CPTO here to my right. But yeah, as we wrap up, obviously we've talked a little bit about, you know, the future of marketing data, the direction that we're headed in. What are some kind of tangible first steps that our listeners could take as they try to navigate this evolving landscape?
You won't be surprised to hear me say like that the data foundation is the most important part, and that's historically been our strength, enabling marketers to access data bi-directionally, to be able to manage that data, harmonize it, make it make sense, always focus on the data first would be my advice. In addition, get excited by AI, but don't buy into all the hype. Really think about what tools you need to solve the problems of your customer and focus on those. And again, don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to iterate and try new approaches and new technologies, but do it with a touch of cynicism, right? Which is a good British trait.
Well, with that, Matt, again, thanks for joining us for this episode. I think, again, if our listeners are to take something away from here, again, follow the trends and don't be afraid to experiment, but just take it with a pinch of salt. So Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And for everybody tuning in and listening, do check out the 2025 Marketing Data Report. You can get it at supermetrics.com/report. And yeah, that's a very tangible guide at how to get started in building a smarter and more effective marketing stack of the future. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Marketing Intelligence Show from Supermetrics. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more data-driven insights that will help you to master your marketing.